Hello.
Hello and welcome.
What a lovely little intro.
It is a lovely intro. This is
Delightful.
episode 17 of Hat Chat.
Wow.
Welcome. We have a guest today.
What? Our first very
Yeah.
special guest?
Yeah, we do.
Hi, my name's Mochi.
This is
Hello.
Mochi, finally.
We've got a vocoder on Mochi. It's not true.
It's the name of Trott's dog.
Sorry, yes.
The uninitiated.
Internal reference.
I guess we should say our names as well, because I always forget that.
Sure. So
I'm
Your own
Ross.
name.
I'm Ross. Yeah, I forget my name all the time. Yeah. It's a condition.
I'm Chris Trott.
I'm Alex Smith.
I'm Simon Clark.
Wow.
Simon Doctor
Very good.
Simon Clark.
Yeah, the
Oh,
doctor normally
don't
goes
leave
at
out
the
the
start,
doctor.
yes.
Yeah.
We've got to be on meme for this kind of thing.
Mhm.
See, I'm a doctor, but of Eastern medicine,
Yeah.
Right.
which surprisingly wasn't actually that hard to get into.
There's not very much factual
It's
content.
Well, no,
Is
it's
the-
just an online course.
Yeah.
Online-
It's like a BuzzFeed quiz.
It is a lot like a BuzzFeed quiz. It's like, what would you do with this tiger penis?
Mm.
So
Does
Dr.
the answer herbs
Clark,
normally?
could you tell us what you're a doctor in?
Ah,
So
yeah.
specifically, well, technically, I'm actually a doctor of mathematics, which is weird to me because I'm not
What's
very
two
good
plus
at
two?
maths.
Maths.
You're not
Four.
very good at maths.
Oh, you
I
got
don't
it straight
think of
away.
myself as being good at maths. No, I have a crippling lack of confidence when it comes to it. Because really,
what,
I'm a.
what do you find hard about maths? Like, is there certain elements of it? Like,
It's
is
all
it like
numbers.
formula that?
I
fucks you
find it
over?
very easy to make a because with maths it's like a series of logical statements that follow, and if you make one mistake, then it cascades.
Mhm.
And I find it very. I'm just a little bit careless. I think.
Right.
I find it very easy to make a small stupid mistake, like adding something instead of subtracting it, and then suddenly everything's fucked.
Is that
from
also
that.
the
Ah.
appeal of it? Is like it's perfection.
Once you get it
Yeah,
right.
once you know you've got it right, it's like watertight.
Are you worried that if you were going to send an astronaut into space, let's say, you'd make
blast
one
Oh, we put
mistake?
Dr. Simon Clark on the math.
You'd put the moon in a completely wrong place.
You just
know,
see it
like-
launch and you're like,
Why is he going so hard right?
like Sokatoa.
Yeah.
Oh,
For God's sake, one tiny
know what that means.
miscalculation.
So technically it's mathematics. Really, I'm a doctor in atmospheric physics. So my thesis was on stratospheric dynamics.
Wow.
Wow.
So that's
that sounds
still
very
within
teach
our
you something.
atmosphere, right?
Yeah, so the atmosphere is like ogres, like onions. It has layers.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah, yeah.
The bottom layer that we live in is the troposphere, and the layer above that is the stratosphere.
Mhm.
So my thesis was looking at how those two layers talk to each other, basically.
What trop and strat? What are those words actually
They're
mean?
from Greek. The trop is turning or kind of unstable because the air in the troposphere is what's called unstable, which means that if you like displace an air parcel, it can just shoot upwards. You get lots of vertical motion.
Right,
Whereas
okay.
in the stratosphere, it's stratified, so it's lots of layers on top of one another. And if you displace an air parcel like upwards in the stratosphere, it will just glide back down.
So I bought
Right.
several things on Amazon. I've never had an air parcel.
Yes, they are quite difficult to find. They're very difficult to make, so they reach a pretty penny.
Is that literally just you doing this and then throwing as much air as you can?
It's an imaginary construct where you seal off a section of air in an adiabatic way such that no heat goes in or out. So it's,
So if
it's
I
a,
had
it's
to
a
make
theoretical
one right
construct.
now, if I went,
Yeah, and then your hands stop any heat exchange from happening.
Yeah.
And then when you move it up into the idea is that if you move it up in the atmosphere, it'll expand
am I in
in
the
size.
stratosphere up here? Do you reckon?
Well, you're very tall, but you're not 50. Well, you're not 10 kilometers.
You're not even
tall.
hitting the roof.
I think he's up there. I couldn't see that.
Thank you.
I couldn't see the top there.
Thank
so
you.
that is what you specialize in.
Yeah.
So can
Yeah.
we quickly just skim over Venus?
Venus. Of
Yes.
course, yeah. Venus,
Did-
of course, is
well,
a gas
this did
giant,
come up.
right?
We have worked together before on the science quiz.
Yes, we
a while
did, yeah.
ago.
That was-
And
But I just want to
it's good.
reiterate that I've got a framed certificate that I've done the thesis,
Yeah.
Right.
and it is concluded,
Yes, what is your doctorate in?
watertight. Let's not go into it. I'm just talking about the Venus.
Yeah, we're talking about you right now.
my
Right,
thesis,
okay.
Mars.
Sorry.
and it is a gas giant. So
I mean, Venus has a lot of gas
What kind of
on
gas?
it.
Methane?
It's a lot of sulfur in the atmosphere. It's a lot of carbon dioxide.
So it's quite an eggy one, do you reckon?
You wouldn't want to be on the surface. You would be crushed. You'd be dissolved, and then, well, I mean, you probably set fire because it's hundreds of degrees Celsius.
Is it?
Oh, it's also the surface pressure. I think is about 73 times that of the Earth.
Wow.
So you'd literally just be pancaked and then dissolved by all the
but in
acid.
the outer layer, wasn't there concepts of
No
having
trips there.
Oh, there's
hot air balloons?
Yeah, you could
or
have there's a
balloons
layer
to live in.
where it might be cool enough, and there may be oxygen.
But probably not.
You don't
Well, I
think
think
we're
it's
going
quite
there.
difficult. I don't know a huge amount about Venus, but I know it's quite difficult to get observations because it's such a harsh environment.
Well,
so
luckily,
you-
we do know a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so-
yeah, well, I don't know why they didn't
Yeah.
come to you.
We're
Yeah.
planning a Venus mission.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to spoil anything,
Yeah.
but we are.
When
and
Kerbal 2
hopefully-
comes out, that's going to be
Yeah,
the
that's
top of
that's
the line.
the priority there.
That's going to be
Yeah.
our
See how
test
quickly
bed.
we can crush
Yeah.
ourselves.
And then we'll make it, like 3D print it. We've got a 3D printer now.
Yeah.
We do.
We'll
yeah.
make a space shuttle and
I know how to make a potato cannon, so we're thinking that the propellant we're going to be using is mainly hairspray.
links
Yeah,
Africa
yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Like a barbecue igniter.
Yeah.
Classic. ignition.
Yeah.
Would you go into space if you had the?
Yes.
I think we discussed this before, and you said yes.
I absolutely would.
Yeah.
I don't know.
What if it was a one-way trip?
I think I'd.
Then no.
No.
I quite like.
You're not
living.
that keen to
But
discover
how
everything
much
and
of a
then just
percentage
die.
of chance of survival would it take for you to go?
Yeah.
Is it like 80%? There's a 20% chance of
I reckon
some
it-
math guy doing some cascading.
Yeah.
failure.
Like, who did the maths? Like, is it me? Oh no, definitely not.
Dear
I
no.
won't
Oh,
be doing
God,
that.
no.
Venus is a gas giant,
Right.
sir. That's Saturn. Oh God.
Oh, we went very wrong.
Well,
Are they
if you end up
planning
on
that
Titan.
though? They're planning tourism, aren't they? In some
Yeah.
form of being.
Well, tourism
like,
has already started,
Right,
Because
okay.
people have gone onto the International Space Station, but it
Ah.
literally costs like billions, or I'm not sure what the exact price tag is,
But it's,
like,
It's gotta be
Also,
up
you
there.
get a
eye-watering
massive
amount.
dose of radiation as well, right?
yeah, you do. I mean, that's one of the big
really?
problems with manned spaceflight generally is stopping people from getting cancers from all the radiation. If you wanted
Jeez.
to live on the surface of Mars, for example, you don't have a very strong magnetosphere, if there is one at all actually on
Oh,
Mars.
I love that X-Men. Yeah.
Magneto is
yeah.
the best one. Right?
X-Man.
He's a villain.
It is the singular of X-Men,
Yeah.
to be fair.
I suppose
The
it would be,
X-Man.
yes. Wolverine, my favorite X-Man.
So that reflects the radiation.
So yeah, if you have a magnetosphere, then it deflects solar charged particles from the sun, which is we have a very strong magnetic field on Earth. Jupiter has a very strong magnetic field, but Mars wouldn't. So you're on the surface, you'd be bombarded by it. So there's a few options that you could use.
shit.
You could burrow underground and use the regolith on Mars to
That's
stop.
my go-to is burrowing.
What's it
Yeah.
made? But like, what do you know? What Mars is actually made of?
It's I actually did a video on
It's not cheese. That's the moon.
one of
That
the
is
Mars
the moon.
rovers, and apparently the closest analog is like astroturf sand.
Okay.
Because the moon is closest to cat litter,
Right.
like the moon,
Oh,
lunar
oh,
It's
regs.
just
right,
quite
okay.
thick grains.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whereas it obviously varies depending on where you are and
Yeah.
like the slope and stuff. But Mars is like very fine grained. Yeah. So and you do get features that look like you could tunnel into in some places, or you use your water as a shield because water's a very good absorber of radiation.
So you could like put up like a inflatable hollow barrier thing and then just pump it full of water.
Yeah, and you're going to need water obviously as a.
Where are you going to get
company.
water from on Mars?
There's a lot of water near the poles.
Well, I
What is
saw
that?
I saw a
Yeah.
good documentary about that. Matt Damon basically
Right.
produced his own
Yes.
water through.
It was rocket
'cause he-
fuel.
was it rocket fuel? I can't remember how he did it, but he did a good job.
Well, he extracted
for a bit.
rocket water from
There were a few
was that-
accidents there.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly the chemical reaction, but yeah, it's the.
Well, I guess it's hydrogen, right? So you could
It did
just bash
explode on him, but
hydrogen and some
he
oxygen
survived.
together.
He exploded, yeah, at one point, but he's fine.
Is that complicated to
guys.
mix hydrogen and oxygen into water? Do you think?
I wouldn't want to do it myself because I'm not a very good experimentalist. But I
Right.
mean, also hydrogen generally, if you're playing with that quantity of hydrogen gas, and oxygen together, it's like an explosion waiting to happen.
Yeah.
I would
okay.
disagree though, because today's experiment was very good. So we got
Yes, we
little,
did do an experiment today.
Yeah,
which-
we're not going to spoil it, but we have.
We've made a video together with the science of Dr. Simon Clark pushed to
Yes.
the extreme.
It is
Yeah.
definitely further than anything I've done in a video before.
Yeah, and it's weird. It's
We have
the
an
weirdest
official
thing we've
complaint from Paul Choi.
Yes, there is an
done. Yes,
official complaint.
there's a complaint.
Super sexy though.
I knew that those waivers would have been a good idea.
Yes,
We
true.
really should have
Yeah.
made them sign waivers.
But we probably shouldn't say any more. But look for a weird video coming out shortly.
Craig's gonna have fun editing that. Are you
I think
looking
so.
forward to looking back all the footage? Great.
I want to see the bits that I haven't seen yet.
Oh,
If
okay.
you know what
Yes,
I
that's
mean.
true. The actual
processing.
processing
Science.
part, yeah.
Yeah. Me yelling
But,
at my
um,
camera.
It involves our bodies, and that's all I think we'll say for now.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Yep.
Have you ever been the passenger in a stunt plane?
I've been a passenger in a. Do you like movies about gladiators? I've been in a glider. I've flown
Okay.
gliders before in like a
Right.
two-seater, but never in a stunt plane. No.
Is that in like Air Cadets or something?
Oh, it was Scouts.
Scouts,
My scout
right.
trip was awesome. We got to
Yeah.
do loads of stuff like that.
Why do you ask?
Because basically, I've always wanted to go to space, and
Sure.
but obviously the physical demands on the body are very, very great. And we got the opportunity to go up in a stunt plane a while back.
Well,
and
you
I was-
did.
I did. They got the opportunity,
Yeah.
but then took it
Sunset,
away.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like super excited because I love planes, I love flying things, I love all that sort of stuff. And I went up in it, and I got really sick. Like almost
Yes.
like 15 minutes in, I was like, "Holy shit! I feel terrible," you know. Like, and I threw up in this thing, and it was, and I imagine going into space in a rocket, and you know, with gravity going and everything like that, it probably is a pretty like churny, tumultuous time for the old stomach.
I mean, if you think about it, like the two steps that you've got to go through is launch, stuff in the middle, landing.
Stuff in the
Like,
middle.
There's stuff in the middle.
Well, you brushed over the
other
stuff in the middle.
details. But like
there's a bit in
the launch, you go up. You go
Yeah.
up and you turn a bit.
Yeah.
And like, that's probably not too bad. You're also probably so high on adrenaline that
Yeah.
you probably wouldn't notice it that much.
Yeah.
I think landing is the one that you would be really traumatic and really stomach churning.
Oh,
But
really?
you're
Okay.
like, I want to come back home.
Yes. Yeah.
So I just got to grit my teeth and, bear it.
And also they've done training, and they've done that. What's that gravity one where they kind of get spun around for the G forces,
Centrifugal forces.
something like
Yeah.
that. Where I guess they have enough of that, where they're like, well, I know what's going to feel like at least to a
Yeah.
simulation level.
And it makes me vomit.
Yeah.
So
But it'd be fun to try one of those. We should. We should see if we
I
can
think
try
it's
one
like
of those
the
one day.
jerky movements, right?
You wouldn't like that, just to.
I don't know if it was the deceleration that would have done it. I think it would have been like, the rapid changes in direction.
yeah, it was. God, it was.
Because you can do the
He's
multi-axis.
just traumatized by it.
There's the multi-axis simulator. The one's got the circles within
yeah,
circles.
yeah.
I've done that, and that's actually not nauseating at all.
Oh, okay.
Although, because your stomach's at the center, so you're spinning around, but like your
So you're
stomach's
just being
facing the
pushed
same
back.
place. What
Right.
really got me
Isn't it
was
the blood?
yeah,
You
like
could,
I mean, it was a while ago I did it, but I didn't feel all of that odd. I remember when I did it.
Oh,
What did
wow.
feel odd was when it was spinning around, and then it literally just stopped and reversed.
Oh,
my
that
stomach
kind of
just
lurch.
jumped all over.
Lurch, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was pretty rough. But yeah, and I think I went up to 4G in a simulator briefly.
4G, nice.
Well, 5G just come out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
5G.
Yeah,
is
true.
the next
I
one.
need to watch Marquez's video about that. Actually, but, yeah, that was at the Space Center in Johnson. Actually, that was really cool. I did like
Johnson?
a training kind of day, which was awesome. And like my childhood self being like, yeah, I'm gonna do this one day. And then I just became a YouTuber instead.
Yeah.
Different
Let
path.
that dream die.
There's more than one way to get to space.
True. I mean, Pornhub, if I remember rightly, tried to do a Kickstarter to shoot a porn in space.
Oh,
Really?
really? An
Or
actual.
Brazzers or someone like that.
Oh, wow.
And they were like,
Jesus.
they went to get the vomit comet, the thing that you do
Yes.
the parabolic
Mhm.
flights. and
Yeah,
they were like-
so like
don't have much
no
time.
gravity to actually try and
Yeah.
do some sort of sex act in
I
the
think
sky.
they did get a bit. I think it failed, but like they got a fair bit of money pledged.
I'd be interested to see it.
What, zero
Oh, of
G
course you
porn?
would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Uranus project.
Does it have to be in anti-gravity though?
Yeah, I think so. I think the gravity element would be interesting to see, wouldn't it?
I think
long
it make
do
it
you
really.
get
You'd have
in
to have a
the
lot of
plummet?
handholds.
Oh, in the plummet's like a minute
Yeah,
or so.
so,
Like,
yeah.
but
Gonna have
I mean, if they manage to get up onto the ISS or something like that, like,
Right.
yeah, the vomit comet, terrible idea. And also, I watched Matt Baker from Blue Peter go on the vomit comet, and he threw up a lot.
Did he?
Apparently, it's much worse if you're looking at a viewfinder. Like if you're talking into a camera.
Fuck me. I honestly, I could.
Because everything's moving around you and you're just
Yeah.
your equilibrium's just messed around. So.
For the longest time, I was like, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do
Yeah,
that.
I
And I went
definitely
in
would.
that stunt plane, and now I'm like, yeah, that's gonna make
Never
me
again.
absolutely spew.
I'd love to do that. Yeah.
Well, it's not that expensive, is it? Is it a couple of grand?
It's a
or something
couple of
like that?
grand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it really?
It's not something you can just like say, "Oh, this
Yeah.
weekend I fancy going into
Yeah.
the vomit comet."
But
It's
it's
very
not
specialist.
like a trip to the ISS, which I think most people would see as like
And-
impossible to obtain
yeah,
in a
you
Like
do-
lifetime.
hundreds of millions or billions.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Potentially years of training as well, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they just strap them in and send them up.
The people that have gone up have been like quite old,
Yeah.
like oligarchs or,
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
Like I can't remember. There's probably 4 or 5 people that have done it. Maybe.
Do you
Yeah,
think
a
there's
couple of
another-
like businessmen, and
Yeah.
we all know that businessmen are like probably some of the least healthy people out there, right? Like,
Potentially, yeah.
They're not
That
all
and
like
YouTubers.
Patrick Bateman.
Yeah.
yeah.
YouTubers aren't healthy either.
Well, it's like
Actually,
you watch Mad Men, and like when they in
Thanks
Mad
for
Men
the-
they had to go up like the stairs at one point instead of taking the lift, and they're just.
Because
they're
they
all
chain
just
smoke.
smoking.
Yeah, yeah,
They're
they are
either
smoking
drinking
and
whiskey
drinking, yeah.
or they're
But also
smoking
they go
or-
out for all these like nice decadent meals
Yeah, yeah.
and stuff,
True,
like
yeah.
like
They live the high life.
exactly powerful execs, not what you call ideal astronauts.
Yeah, they use their minds, not their bodies.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Anyway,
That was a tangent.
If we can go to space, we'll
you
try.
would go to space though if you had the option.
I'd definitely go to space.
Yeah.
I
Would you go to
mean,
Mars if you got the option? As in, this whole one-way thing that they're doing.
I know one of the guys who was on that, and
Oh,
it seems
really?
to have mysteriously petered away because it was a terrible idea.
Yeah.
just sending like random people who sign up for it to go and start a new colony.
Well, wasn't there an
yeah.
idea that there was going to be a reality show based around that? But that
That was,
fell
it.
apart
That was
as
how
well.
they were going to fund it. They
Yeah.
were like, well, landing on Mars is going to be like the most televised event
Yeah,
in
of
history.
course.
If you put a sponsor there, like this landing brought to you by Skillshare or something, that's going to pay for the cost of the mission, right? No,
Dear God,
you
no.
idiot.
So much more.
Also, just like, I feel like you need to have like the best people to
Yeah.
go.
Well, they do.
Not just a bunch of really like
they did-
weird, kooky personalities.
There was people from like a massive candidate pool, I think.
But there
Yeah.
was like one woman who was like, I remember us reading an article about it maybe a year or 2 years ago
Yeah.
now. They were like, yeah, I mean, my family are obviously going to be very sad when I go, but I want to do this. And it
Yeah.
was like, it was somebody leaving like their partner
Yeah.
and 3 kids.
And
and,
it-
you're just like,
It's basically a suicide mission.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
you're never coming back.
Yeah.
That was the
Yeah.
intention.
Yeah.
You're signing. You're just signing yourself
What's
away. So see
interesting
you later.
though, is the fact that this has fizzled out, and everyone now knows that.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
now has to live with that family. It's like,
Yeah.
I was about
Oh,
to.
yeah.
I could be in Mars right now, living it up, trying to desperately struggling
or
to survive.
it's like, you were just going to leave us.
Yeah.
Just like that.
You're just willing to cut us all
Yeah.
off.
I'm popping down to the shops. Are you though?
Are you
Yeah.
Are you gonna come back?
I can see the rocket. It's there.
The guy on the end of the like driveway
Yeah.
with a rocket waving.
Yeah.
From Channel 4.
Quick NASA branded car.
Yeah.
So
Oh my
climate's a big deal, right? I
Yeah,
think we
today of all
Wow.
days, actually.
Yeah,
Of
so
course.
we need climate.
We do.
If we don't have it,
We need climate.
it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
We need
Very
climate
strange
to be
wording.
the way it is now, right?
Well, roughly, give or take.
Yeah.
If not better.
And you're obviously a big advocate for
Having a climate.
global warming, aren't you?
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. I'm Australian, so I think
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
Because it's a bit cold in
Man.
England, so
We've had a great summer, haven't we?
We have, yeah. It's been
It's been actually
it's
very
been a blocking
nice,
high
yeah.
at the moment, so it's been warm for quite a while.
Obviously, people don't use global warming in a professional sense anymore because it alludes to the
Sounds-
idea that the
It will warm
planet's-
everywhere.
Yeah, you might fool a president into thinking that everything should be warm and
Yeah, it looks like we could do some more global warming.
yeah,
Yeah.
Get rid of this snow.
that's how it works, genius.
But yeah,
Thanks, Don.
Yeah,
like obviously you're quite vocal about climate change and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean,
What's some interesting stuff that you've come up against?
oh man,
boy.
there's so much. I'm so interested in this. Sometimes you'll tweet out something which is like all the comments on his climate change videos, and the people that talk on there is so nuts. I cannot believe it.
It's amazing. I mean, the thing is, I would do a video just reading through the best ones.
Yeah.
So for those of you who maybe don't know, I have a YouTube channel which is largely science based, and a lot of it is climate.
Simon
and so
of physics.
you do get a lot of comments from people who they clearly have an agenda.
Yes,
Or
yeah.
or they buy into it being a conspiracy theory, and it is quite a surprising number of people that like. I think it's like 4% or something like that of people in America believe that it's a hoax created by the Chinese. Like and when you consider the size of America, 4% is a lot of people.
And
For what reason
yeah.
do you think that
What's the main arguments that they put forward?
I mean, there's like a ladder of denial, which is like I can't remember the exact steps here, but it's
Yeah.
basically like the climate isn't changing.
Okay.
If it is changing, we're not causing it. If
Right.
we are causing it, it's in conjunction with other stuff, or
Okay.
then if it is changing, it's not going to be that bad, or it's not going to affect me. And then like there's like stages of that you get,
Yeah.
and one of the first ones is the sun, and it's
Okay.
like, my God,
You're right.
we didn't. Oh my Lord, it's so embarrassing. We've got to
Yeah,
double down now.
That is pretty hot.
Yeah, and it's just got warmer. But how did we not think of that? It's like
Yeah.
one of my favorite tidbits I learned recently was that obviously when you're looking at global warming, you need a long time series. The longer you
Right,
have
yeah.
to measure, the more you can see the change.
Yeah.
And so one of the things for sea surface temperatures that we looked at was ships records. So you know, ships going around since I think the mid to late 19th century. And the technique that they would use was you put a bucket overboard wherever you are, you haul it up to the side, stick a thermometer in it, and then that's your temperature. You
Sure.
make measurement. Fine.
Bucket's
Perfectly
been
fine.
heated by the Chinese.
Is that yeah?
Well, this is the thing, right? We realised a few years ago that that's not quite right, because when you put the bucket out of the water, it's going to cool down slightly, like 1/10 of a degree.
Why don't you just drop
Yeah.
a thermometer into the water
Well,
itself?
because it's big ships. You know.
Yeah, it's like a long way.
Well,
to
a
go.
really big
Well,
thermometer.
but also I don't
novelty
think they-
size thermometer.
I don't think they thought that carefully about it at the time.
Yeah,
Here we
yeah.
go.
Also, is surface level enough to judge on?
Well, that's so the sea surface temperature is an index.
Is that
that you
index?
have.
Okay.
But then they realised, oh wait, but actually it's going to be slightly different depending on where you are. So then there was a new statistical bit of sort of trickery that was done in it to evaluate how much it was going to cool in different areas and different parts of the
Right,
yeah.
oceans, and like corrections of hundredths of a degree, but changing the record that we have. That's the degree of care that climatologists go into when they're preparing these data sets, and
Yeah.
yet people seem to think, oh, we didn't consider the sun,
Right.
or we didn't consider charged particles coming in. And it's like, I think some people just like sticking it to the man.
Yeah.
You know, it's like an anti-establishment.
So
stuff.
did you
But
get a lot of
it's a
people trying to
dangerous
prove
thing
you
to do.
wrong, like constantly in the chat, in comments and stuff? They're just saying, "Oh, you didn't think of this though," because you may have not
Yeah.
mentioned something that was obvious.
I mean,
Right.
and like I did a video on sea level rise,
Right.
And there's like a triangle of like you're going to make a video which is interesting to watch, which has that's one point. Another point is it has all possible bits of information,
Yep.
and then a video that's short enough that people will actually want to watch it. And you've basically got to
quite
pick
a
Gotta
struggle.
land that marker
Quite a
somewhere.
struggle.
Yeah, and like you will make a video like I did, and you gloss over a particular point because
Yeah.
it's like either you think this is so obvious, or it's not. I just don't want to get into this right
Yeah,
now. It's
yeah,
very
yeah.
complicated, and people go, but you missed this bit, and it's like, okay, yeah, I can see why you've said that, but Google it for 5 fucking minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Like people
But,
being like, oh, the Maldives aren't sinking. It's like just literally 10 seconds on Google will bring up a tide gauge showing that the sea level is rising in the Maldives.
yeah. There's data.
It's like, who created that data, though? You know.
So it's anti-establishment. It's people being like, yeah, but they're lying to us. Why?
Yeah. What's the purpose of what they're doing? Is it
what you're up against as well is that the kind of people saying these things they don't have the same reasoning faculty as us. Like so.
Well, not necessarily. I think that's a common misconception that people make, is that these people are stupid. I think a lot of them aren't stupid, but they take their information from sources which are biased, and they don't think critically enough about them. I think it's an easy trap to fall into, to be like, I'm going to ignore them.
I don't think stupid, but like you say, like I think a person, like, often these things get segregated recently into, that's such a liberal state of mind,
right? Yeah, there's like a team's element to it.
So I feel like the kind of people that get put into the liberal box, not saying they're necessarily better, but I am kind of inferring that from what I'm about to say, will question even their own ideas. Yeah. Right, so you will go, actually, yeah, let's actually look at whether or not we could have been lied to, like Trott says, like who made that data set, you know?
Yeah.
Whilst on the other end of the spectrum, yeah, people might attack something you say, but equally they don't think about their own state of mind. It's like, okay, right, I genuinely think from what I've experienced in my life that this person is making something up, or this person is wrong, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But they won't then take the extra step to go, right, what do I think? Why do I think that? And what's the likelihood that's true? And that's what I say. That's what I mean by they're stupid.
I mean, and you'll get people who are like, I lived at the coast for example, I've lived at the coast my entire life, and sea levels haven't changed a bit, and it's like, well, they've changed by like millimeters. That's why you haven't seen it. But like,
it's global.
And they will say as such, or just like, my favorite comments are just like bollocks.
Right.
Or bullshit or something, and it's like, fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you.
A well-reasoned response to this.
Well, yeah.
But like, I think on the other side of things, you do get people who are very rational, and you get certain blogs which will spring up and do some analysis, which is flawed, but it is analysis, and people will rally around those as opposed to the scientific establishment. I think because it's an identity
thing.
It's
like sticking it to the man. Like, this person's risen out, done the work to show everybody that this establishment is...
And it confirms what they already wanted to believe. It's like, I want to belong to that set of people, so I'm going to believe this study, but not the 90 studies which are much more rigorous.
Yeah.
It's a sense of belonging, and I think what's interesting is that's not necessarily a science thing. It's a human thing, right? In terms of... like a lot of like white nationalist things and things like that, they often find that the people that are attracted to white nationalism, which I think most people would agree, hopefully, that race shouldn't really play a part in in determining somebody's worth. And so racist people, white supremacy and that sort of thing, the idea is it does. However, when you actually you actually talk to white supremacists, and there's a lot of catalogued historical data of people actually coming out of these white supremacists and go, oh my god, it's because these people are marginalized, or because they do feel alone, and like you say, they find a sense of belonging. The problem is, I'm getting to the point now, and maybe the evil is finally.
Please don't say what you're thinking.
No. It's not. I'm getting to the point where I'm just losing my patience as a person who I hope is rational and fairly open-minded. I'm losing my patience with a lot of people, particularly people in power at the moment, obviously, that are just fucking evil, stupid assholes. Earlier on you were saying about it's really hard to create a video that both informs people and is also understandable, and they'll watch it to the end. And Bernie Sanders recently said this to Joe Rogan on one of his podcasts, saying, you cannot sum up the entire economic policy of a country in a 20-second soundbite. Yet that's the only avenues of communication and interaction you have with the people you're trying to convince, right? So it's
some people will just read a headline.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And it's like, you can't. And I think that is truly the hallmark of a good leader, or a person that might fix things, when they fully accept the magnitude of what they're dealing with and saying, no, I'm not going to give you a soundbite. I'm not going to say this. I'm not going to go, yes, we'll give you more jobs. It's like, well, no.
And that's great for you, but like you say, the human condition is predisposed to, the majority of people looking at these sound bites are going to go for the biggest, most bombastic version.
Yeah, the clickbait has taken over.
It feels like people's attention spans, or like the capacity to absorb any amount of information, has shrunk so much.
So what you do is you put your trust in someone that you think has done the work for you.
That's the thing.
And if they sound trustworthy enough, then you'll believe it, right?
Or if they're saying the things that you want to have confirmed.
Yeah.
But how difficult do you find it in terms of separating that kind of politicized version of climate change versus the science behind it.
I mean,
And because obviously people are going, oh, well, that's just a liberal thinking, rather than that's based on facts that have been researched and data. That's
And when did it become
collected.
so bad to be liberal in your thinking?
yeah.
Well, yeah.
like
How dare you entertain other points of view?
Because the
You
word is
fucker.
the word is synonymous with a team now. It doesn't
Well,
mean
that's it.
Yeah,
It's now become
It's just
that
red
team versus
first,
my
blue.
team. We're like all of my like-minded friends are this,
Yeah.
so that means
Well,
So
you'll find that the people that do stuff like me, and there are lots of other channels that do climate science, that it's not a political issue. Climate science does not care about your political
Yes.
affiliation. It's how you respond to it. And I think one of the aspects of conservatism, so the right generally, is that you don't think things are going to change. You don't
Right.
entertain the idea that things
Yeah.
are going to change. It's an inherently conservative viewpoint.
especially
And
if you're benefiting from something
from the
at that
status
time.
quo, yeah.
Yeah.
So to actually admit that something is changing implies that something needs to be done about that change,
Therefore, something's wrong.
which
Yeah.
therefore is kind of incompatible with a lot of the mindset of say a conservative party. So it's when I do my videos, it's like I will talk about the facts objectively. It's not a political thing. It's then when you get to the end, and because you naturally, if you're shown a lot of facts about, well, this is how much we're warming, this is how much we anticipate we're going to warm, you think, well, then, yeah, how do we stop this? What do we do about it? And then that's the avenue to being like, well, actually, removing fossil fuel subsidies would be a pretty good idea.
And
And
it's
suddenly it's like, yeah, it's
political.
interfering with private business, and why should there be?
Well, this is the thing, and it is probably important to stress, because I know some conservatives who are listening, or perhaps, hopefully, still some out there. I think that when you're talking about conservatism as a concept of government was initially small government, right? Conservatism is an idea that a government doesn't meddle with your shit as much as versus say socialism or something like that, where the government very much has an active role in your life, whilst conservatism shouldn't. And this is what's so confusing, is because now conservatism is this like hard line, like you say, like we're not going to mess with big business, but we also won't listen to this. It's like, well, really, conservatism should just be like, right, the government's running, we're still allowing our citizens to be as free as possible, and so they should be allowed to think and see things like scientific evidence.
Well,
and go,
have you seen this thing recently in California where I think the US government are deciding to take away a lot of the restrictions on vehicle emissions.
Oh.
Whereas California was trying to
Increase them,
increase
yeah, like
them
Schwarzenegger
because
in
they want to
particular
make
was, like,
sure
really big on that.
because the smog in these certain cities are terrible, and so they're like, look, let's lower the emissions. That's better for everyone. Everyone's going to be healthier, etc. Use less fuel. That's a good thing. And obviously now Donald Trump has turned that around, and he's tried. Well, whether he's actually done it or not, I'm not sure, but he's tried to, so that they can increase them. Like, what do you think about that? Like, they're literally trying to make the world worse by doing such a simple thing. It's been like that since the 70s, by the way. Like, it's not like a new thing.
Yeah.
They've been setting the emissions.
It's stuff
Since
like that
then.
that you just think, I actually can't. Normally when you, for example, white nationalism, right? I'm in no way saying that I agree with it, but you can sort of see, right, I can see what your thought process is. I can understand why you think that, and
We've
you're
got
wrong.
a small group
but-
of people who will just show us the way, and
Yeah.
like.
And
Because sometimes you feel like sometimes I want to start my own island and go, right, we've got some scientists, we're gonna go based on evidence. Let's do this. We're gonna get rid of religion because that's an outdated and annoying thing that interacts with things. And it's like
Anyone that disagrees is not welcome on the island.
exactly, and that is quite nationalist and quite dictatory. Like, saying, oh, freedom, you can't have freedom of religion because we feel like it's a waste of time. Other people might not think that, and therefore you're oppressing people's state of mind. But imagine that, eh? Imagine where we had a nation that was no gods, only man.
Sure.
Like.
Wow, yeah.
The thing is, like, you also have to think internationally. Like, you can't just be this isolated island without the interference of outside
But then
nations.
there's that natural human response of, wait a minute, you're not me.
Yeah.
Like, you look different, or
Yeah.
you say things different. You don't call shoes daps or whatever. Like,
I call them plimsolls.
so
Like a real person.
and the thing about that is, like, I mean, nations are like an entirely social construct anyway. Like, and human culture is fractal. So once you get to the point where, like, yeah, we're going to isolate ourselves as a nation, within that, then you're going to get people who hate Marmite or love Marmite. And they're like, oh, well, we're not going to have any Marmite haters in this country.
There's always
then,
going to be a way of division.
I'm actually not pro Marmite, I will say.
I'm not. Yeah,
Personally, I'm a big Marmite fan.
I like Marmite.
Right,
Right,
we go.
well,
You
you
got 50-50
guys go
split.
off to your island, and me and
Yeah.
Ross
No
go off to
Marmites
ours.
allowed.
Come
How
on,
about
Ross,
we
it's just
fight?
me and you. We've got to repopulate this island.
Let's do it. No Marmite allowed. But yeah,
then
like
you'll find differences between each other. That's the point I think you're making.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like we may both not like Marmite, but you've got different coloured eyes to me.
So, well, me and Ross actually have the same. Actually, in
Yeah,
fact,
but
you two are Mud Eyes, so you'll go to the Mud Eye Island.
Yeah.
This is all working out. I think we're solving a problem here.
But yeah,
Segregation is the way forward.
It certainly makes things a little bit more organised, doesn't it?
But then there's a natural human desire to do that, and that's the thing. Like
equilibrium.
Yeah,
let's just all go down the path of equilibrium.
But what,
the film?
What I was saying before I got distracted by Marmite-ism was this idea that like you can understand like an extreme point of view, you can see the rational steps, but then there are some things like that where you're like, you are literally just making the world worse.
But the reason he wanted to do that, Donald Trump wanted to do the climate thing, was because he wanted to increase the motor business. So he wanted the automotive business to,
which means by
rise.
proxy,
So
all the oil companies, he's got pockets.
And it creates more jobs.
They finally get more jobs. So someone who's looking for a job, I get to make shitty cars that are going to ruin our planet, but they get a job. So like it's a balance thing.
One of the
ultimately, it's for money. That's the thing, right?
One of the hardest things that I find, like I always think when I'm trying to make an argument, I always think about how can a person counter this, right?
Yeah.
So like that's it's a little like psychological thing in the back of my head.
You should do that though, shouldn't you? Really, like take both sides and think, well, these are pros and cons of
So Donald Trump, and I'm sure many other world leaders out there have done it before as well, is like you say, lessening off of environmental restrictions in order to generate more jobs. And so like when the coal and steel industry started opening up again, he's like, right, I'm going to deregulate this so that we can generate more jobs, we can get more coal out of the ground because we're not caring about the environmental impact of it so much, right? That's great for the people that didn't have a job, probably had a shit life, and they've gone, oh my god, I finally got a job. Oh, I'm actually going to be able to get that car or buy that phone that's advertised to me. But I've never been in that position. For me, I'm like, no, I would not want a leader to sacrifice, potentially the next 100 years of our lifespan or 100 years of human beings because I want a job now. However, I've had quite a nice life.
It's all the politics basically comes down to a value judgment. It's like how what do you value, and what is the relative magnitude of it? But
how much do you value? Matters if there's no planet, right?
Well, but that's like a common misconception that like the planet will be here. The planet can like two shits
a habitable planet, should we say?
Yeah, and it's like a boiling frog problem. It's not like it's going to be a snap change. Yeah. It is going to be sort of slow, but it will get faster and faster, we anticipate.
Climate change is boring right now.
How long do you think the human civilization will last?
It depends what we do in the next 100 years, really.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity.
Right? Like, do you think it's
what if all the methane that's trapped under the permafrost just comes up and because apparently
that is a tipping point I'm aware of. But I don't know what the concentration is. Like,
it's pretty high. So a couple of years ago, probably the first thing that really like hit me in the feels, if you know what I mean, like holy fuck, we are in a lot of danger here. Was a panel of scientists like presenting their evidence or they were investigating the permafrost in Russia and the methane deposits underneath it, and they're like this could happen at any time. Like this methane could escape up through the permafrost, and it would have like massively damaging impact. We're looking at like it was something several centigrade of increasing in the sort of global temperature within like a couple of years, they're like that would
that's like a bifurcation. It's like that's a snap turning point where it could happen. Like I say, I don't know what the exact. Because the danger with the Siberian stuff is, and the methane in Russia is that the poles, and particularly the North Pole, warm a lot faster under global warming. It's a process called sort of polar amplification than the rest of the world. If you look at like a map of where the warming has happened, it's almost all around
and why
there.
Is that?
I think it's because of heat being transported from the equator more efficiently to the poles. Right, and then also you get the feedback of when the ice melts in the Arctic.
It reflects less.
Yeah, so it lowers the albedo, so it absorbs more, and then it's like a runaway train. But like, there are certain tipping points like that in terms of like how long society could exist for. At the end of the day, everything's hard to predict, but particularly the future.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite quotes. But like, if you have different scenarios like received concentration pathways, which will say, so this is how much carbon we're going to put out. Right. This is how much the temperature is going to change, we think. But then you can also have things like economic models. It says if this economic activity happens, this is what we think is going to happen.
And this is ignoring all potential war scenarios as well.
Yeah, ignoring stochastic events like that.
Which are triggering in different ways.
What will probably happen is we'll probably lie somewhere in the middle of the predictions. We will take action, but too late.
Right.
And we will stave off the absolute worst case, but it's still going to result in hundreds of millions of people migrating. Huge numbers of people dying from heat stress, potentially a massive... The really dangerous thing is conflict. Like, if resources become scarce, then people will, especially in places like the Middle East, will go to war over them.
Well, I mean, look at what's already happening.
Well, we
like,
are.
So you know, when
like,
you...
oil wars, right? Like,
But when you say how long will society kind of exist, it really depends what you mean by society.
Yeah.
I'm thinking
right,
Like, you know, how, in what sense of
fallout levels.
what level of Mad Max do you have to reach before society doesn't exist
I'm
anymore?
thinking middle-class white people in England. Like, at what point am I going to have to stop shopping in Waitrose?
Truly the end of the world.
Truly, I mean, like, god damn. I want 6 kinds of peanut butter on the shelf.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the current kind of like Western middle class lifestyle is unattainable by the sort of like the middle of the next century, or the end of this century, because it is
life of excess,
incredibly resource intensive. Like if you think almost certainly in our lifetimes we will see the peak of middle class prosperity. The extremely rich will always be able to finance stuff because wealth inequality will always be a thing. But in terms of what I would sort of term in the UK, like the average people, like the actual quality of life that is currently possible, will reach a maximum in our lifetime. Quite how much it will decline, I don't know. But I would be very surprised if people in 100 years, say, are buying new motor vehicles as blasé as
I mean, just
people do now.
thinking about single-use plastic in the first place as well, like how much you use a week on an individual basis. Like, you know, times that by how many in this country? 60 million, 80, 75 million.
It is insane when you look at the...
Like, it's ridiculous, really. So, like,
and
that
the first step to
times
stopping it is
how
that
many years?
we are aware of it now.
Yes,
and that's and that's the whole thing about. So today is the climate strike. Like,
of course,
you know, the first step to solving a problem like this is getting everybody on board that it exists and that it is important. A climate strike is not going to save climate change. It's not going to solve anything on its own. But then it's the first step in, you know, a series of things that need to take place.
There's sort of politics to take place as well.
Because that's the thing. Like, there's the two approaches. You've got a bottom-up approach and a top-down approach. Bottom-up is things like, I'm vegetarian, for example, because it's a lower carbon footprint. I try not to fly as much as I can because massive carbon footprint. That will have an effect on an individual basis if lots of people do it. Me on my own is like...
Is a minuscule,
like,
sure.
Yeah, it's like using a pea shooter against
a
a tank.
Well, didn't they say something about, you know, the cars don't even actually give off as much carbon emissions as things like the meat industry, right?
Oh yeah,
things like that. Like
on an individual basis,
in the country aren't as bad as
like not flying and not eating meat
cows.
is like the biggest things you could do.
Yeah.
But again, it's a tiny change on your own. It can inspire others, whatever. But then really the meaningful change will come from the top down. It has to come from government. So something like, for example, the Green New Deal, which if it ever gets details, you know, properly, would be the kind of thing we're looking at, like a massive system-wide change of how things work, moving from fossil fuels to renewable sources. I just realised I've been talking about this for however long, and this is a podcast mostly about dick jokes.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. This is
just
just
making it way
one
too
of the more
serious.
serious ones, but I mean, you can
I think once in a
here
while
and there.
people like tuning into Hat Chat and actually learning something.
Yes, we
But
did.
what will happen to our dicks in 20 years' time? That's what I really want to know with
Does
this
it now
climate
get
change.
smaller or bigger?
I can only hope bigger.
I think
Okay.
bigger.
Fingers crossed.
All the joking I've been doing.
Well, we can go into some funny news if you want.
Please.
Yeah, funny news.
You can't talk about this stuff for too long or you just get
Yeah,
sad.
exactly. And it's so broad, and there's so many other things you could.
I think that's
you could
probably
talk
enough to
about.
inspire some people, though. Like you say,
Yeah.
raise awareness.
I think
Yeah.
so.
I think it's important to look into at least.
So
you know, there's lots of stuff online. If you do want to learn more about it, I mean, there's my channel, which there'll be a link, I'm sure, somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also people like Climate Adam on YouTube. There's Hot Stuff on YouTube. Kurzgesagt has done some really good videos
they've done,
on
yeah.
it.
And then
Great
are you
animations.
all paid off by the Chinese government? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, someone's got to kind of like outmatch the Koch brothers, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
right,
now
of
there's only
course.
one of them, it's much easier. So my funding's just gone off a cliff.
Right.
Damn.
Well, this was actually sent in by several people.
Okay.
Massive semen explosion after blaze hits bull artificial insemination facility.
What?
Firefighters forced to dodge projectiles
Of semen.
Of-
They didn't see this coming.
of
Whey.
bull semen. So
Amazing.
Think about that's like really valuable though.
Oh,
yes,
it
it
is,
is.
yeah.
It is.
So like each glob that you're
I
dodging is
know.
like 10 grand.
That's
Yeah.
white
Catch
gold.
it.
Yeah.
It's white
you
gold.
want to get a bucket and get to the projectiles, catch them with a bucket.
Get the baseball gloves out.
No time for a bucket, Ross. Get your mouth out.
Well, that's
Yeah.
it.
Snowball back into the system.
Glub as much as you can.
What do they
Swallow.
call it? Like homeostatic, where it's like the right temperature for
Yeah.
the body or something like that.
Oh, what? And you sit there with like your
Keep
mouth
it
like
warm.
a basking shark.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep
The
it
only
cheeks like
place
a
I can
hamster.
think of which is warm enough is you've got to soft mouth it.
I could fit some in my ass.
Let's have a quick look at that video there.
And Hat Chat is back.
It's
ladies
a
and
little
gentlemen.
bit. There we go. It took 10 fire crews more than 2 hours to fully extinguish the fire.
Oh, look at that damage.
Do you reckon it burns pretty well?
I reckon
reckon
it probably
it
just
smells
melts.
foul.
Or,
You think it
oh.
smells bad?
Yeah.
I reckon it
Dense,
smells awful.
dense, salty.
Do you reckon it's like a
Jizzy
salty,
smell.
fishy, kind of
Look at
disgusting?
Fishy.
Oh, they
Look
got
at
nice
him.
pictures of cows as
Hey!
well.
Very happy.
He's like,
balls.
Oh.
More business for me.
Can we get some details on what?
Okay, the liquid inside the cylinders, which they were storing it, was rapidly expanding, and essentially the lids of the cryogenic cylinders was just popping off the
Wow.
top, and projectiles were being thrown from the building.
Good God.
Firefighters went into defensive mode initially to protect themselves,
Defensive
because
mode.
there were also LPG cylinders at the neighbouring property, and did a magnificent job.
What a unique
So they
issue
managed
for the
to,
firefighters to
Yeah.
face.
So-
Yeah.
You get the call. Right.
So-
don't laugh at me.
The cylinders are worth between $500 and $1,000. That's US. That's Australian dollars, which is about $342 US.
Okay.
That's
God, their
less than I
economy's
thought. Well, I guess
trash.
The Australian
Jeez.
economy is
Yeah.
fucked. Yeah.
I guess that there's like a sliding scale of how much it's worth.
Yes, of
like
course,
the really premium shit
Yeah,
is
the
going to be worth a
real
lot.
good
But
cow
your
cum.
bang average, like just want to make another cow.
Yeah.
Can't be that expensive.
Oh,
Those
sure. I mean,
cows.
you just leave them in the field. Eventually, they'll just fuck each other.
And
Right?
again, the cows are the problem with
Yeah.
the climate.
Oh,
and
let's
with
not go back to this.
storing their jizz.
But they're coming into the AI season, so there would have been a substantial amount of semen inside the tanks that we've lost.
AI.
Artificial
artificial insemination, not
insemination.
intelligence.
Yeah.
No,
Oh
no,
my
the
God.
artificial the
AI cows.
The cows are
They're
robots. Yeah.
So what this actually means then, potentially, is there are going to be less cows born next year
Yeah.
because less available semen to inseminate cows.
Yeah.
So if anything,
quality
this is
semen.
good
It
news.
could be good news. Yeah.
This is good
Maybe it was a
news.
sabotage.
It's a climate.
Maybe.
It's a climate miracle.
Ecoterrorism. Mark my words.
Yeah.
That's
It's a
Eco-terrorism.
climate miracle, a
Yeah.
Christmas climate miracle. It's snowing.
Yeah.
No,
Your average
that's
Joe's
that's
queuing up.
jizz.
No, that's not snow.
Don't stick your tongue out.
The kids, no, the tongues.
I'm
No, no,
catching
no.
it.
Oh dear God.
Assume a defensive. What was it?
Defensive firefighters form defensive positions. I don't know what
Test judo formation
Yeah,
against like
yeah.
semen. Like, smash into
Semen
the
shield.
It's eating through the metal.
My God, it's like an alien effect. Oh.
Oh.
But yeah, so there's significant damage, and it has going to have a flow-on effect on Yarram,
Flow on
especially
effect.
after the drought that Yarram district has experienced over the last 12 months. That's the place
Oh,
that this
that's a
was.
shame.
Well, you live in sperm, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to praise the firefighters
So
for their
loose.
spunk.
You do, yeah.
Oh, so that's it's a sticky mess.
It is.
But
Oh.
the other story that I found,
Very
which has
worrying.
been very
Very
prominent
worrying.
yesterday,
Very
Yeah.
was
worrying.
I'll ask you a personal question. Has any of you ever dressed in blackface?
No.
No.
Can't say I
Trott's
have.
been close.
Yeah.
And that was probably our fault. That was
Accidentally.
accidental.
That was no
Um,
good.
I'm doing a tough mudder tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
So
not
I-
the same.
That's not exactly blackface.
That's not
just
conscious.
mud.
That's not consciously thinking I'm
That's
going to go
not.
out and dress up in blackface. So Justin Trudeau,
President of Canada.
went for it. He went for it, and he doesn't. You can't recall
I like how they picked
how
a
many
photo.
times he's done it.
But apparently there's at least three
There's
different
at least
times.
3 images.
I mean, it's a lot of times to do
on.
it, isn't it? This is the thing. So,
Oh,
so
imagine saying you can't recall.
Yeah.
like,
Maybe once or
apparently,
twice, 4,
one of the
5.
reasons he gave was like something else to do with like he was, raised in a certain way. Essentially,
Random parents,
what he
sure.
was saying is that his upbringing kind of made it feel like it wasn't that much of a deal.
Right. Okay.
What I'm getting from that is that Justin
Naivety.
Trudeau probably had a private school upbringing.
Yes.
Not saying that private school people are racist. However,
you might
Oh, safe.
like you know, Prince Harry turned up in a Nazi
Oh,
uniform.
Nazi,
Yeah.
Like
God.
there's
Oh,
a certain
man, what a
kind of
fucking misstep.
humor, I think, in certain circles of society which cause things like this to happen.
But
And
it's born out of privilege.
don't-
It's
yeah.
funny because they know that it's a situation.
because they know they shouldn't be doing it, and and they're like, "Oh, isn't this a bit risque?" You
Should
know,
we watch
like
his apology?
we can do. Yeah.
How long
Sure. I
is
mean,
it?
his apology's not.
This is only 1 minute.
it's-
We don't have to watch. I let a lot of people down.
Yeah. Let's see. If it
You've done
loads.
this obviously more than 2 times. Why?
More than 2 times.
I think when we recognize, when we reflect on mistakes we made in the past, that's a question that we're always going to be asking. Why did we do that? Why did we think it was okay? Why did we think it was a good idea at the time? It wasn't a good idea. It was a terrible idea. It was something that minimizes and takes advantage of a reality that I have not had to live with, of being discriminated against, of being marginalized, of being judged for the color of my skin,
Quick cut to a
for
photo.
my
him blackface.
language, my background. I come from a place of privilege, and I have endeavored in my life to put the advantages and the opportunities I've been given to serve this country, to fight for people's rights.
Wow.
I'm
and
loving
I have to recognize
I'm loving the
I
guy
let
with
a
the
lot of people
placard
down.
behind him. Who's like
With
massive
that
W.
choice.
W.
It's like a
And I
2000s
stand here
rapper.
today
with like a
That
twat
is an
man.
awful
to
shirt collar he's
reflect
wearing in
on
the bottom
that
right, isn't it?
and
Like,
Yeah.
to
also
ask
Justin
for,
Trudeau as well.
Forgiveness.
I mean, fuck, like it's a standard. Like the worst
Yeah,
thing
that's
about
like
this
his
for him
standard
is it's
script.
damaging for his political career. He doesn't really care. And to be quite frank, I don't particularly care either. I don't know about you guys.
But I think
Again, we're similar to him.
But
we're in a middle class privileged
But-
position.
sorry, it's because he didn't care is what the issue is, right?
I'd
It's
be
because he
interested
didn't
to,
think
like-
about it 3 times.
Let's survey some middle class, black people, some middle class.
There's
like,
loads of people
like-
saying that. Yeah, there's loads of people saying they don't care.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. And obviously, ultimately, maybe he's done more good than
I guess
that.
is
But
it the intention
It's
behind
stupid
it?
as hell.
Yeah.
It's
really
stupid as hell.
It's what it's. It's not going to affect how he governs, but it's like indicative of potentially how he might do other things.
or he might think in certain ways. Exactly.
I
I
think
think that's
it's-
the risk, isn't it?
Not given,
It's
attention
dangerous
media.
though because like in especially cancel culture,
Yeah.
like I feel like it's very
Yeah.
possible that people be like, "Oh, Justin Trudeau's cancelled.
Yeah.
like that's it. He's done." And it's like, for something like this, like you say, why should it matter? Do people care? Yes, I think it is. I think it's important because it's indicative of like a certain mindset. It shows that discrimination is still alive and needs to be tackled.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
And it's
if
joked
people
about as well.
if people go about cancelling people for a single act like that in the past, there's no possibility for personal growth.
Yeah.
Something
You have to
like
be
that.
perfect
Yeah.
from day one, otherwise you're gone.
Exactly.
And you
Yeah.
may as well just fucking die.
And it's I don't know. I'm not trying to excuse behaviour like that, but it does feel like there should be the possibility of personal growth. You should be able to
Sure,
make a
yeah.
mistake and say, "Oh, I now know what I did was
I've got to
wrong,
wonder-
and I'm going to move forward from it, improve."
How have they only just come up now, though? Like, hasn't he been?
Because it's election season.
Yeah, it must be in the
Uh,
election.
the-
Only,
so-
like,
Is it a
well, how did
smear
that not come up
campaign?
beforehand? Like, in terms of when he originally
Guess
was
people did
elected.
some
Maybe
extra
it was-
digging.
Maybe his team
3
were
times.
attempting to downplay
Yeah.
and hide these things, and
Yeah.
they've been
It's
surfaced
finally
as a smear.
come out.
Yeah,
If it was a one-off, you might think, well, sure, like
Yeah,
it
3
was a dumb
times
decision
is-
at a party 18 years ago, sure, but like
Yeah.
3 times, you got to kind of think, well, why was he doing it 3 times, and why did no one say anything at the time? Because even at the time,
Maybe
even
it was
20 years ago, think about it. If anyone still did that, you'd still go, whoa.
Yeah,
because
that's
the
not-
kind of
that's not
people he was
okay.
hanging around with weren't the kind of people to challenge
Yeah.
that kind of thing. They were just like,
They
Yeah.
found it.
fuck
They
it.
found it funny. But
Yeah.
yeah.
What about like on Always Sunny?
yeah,
Mac does blackface. Well, I think
Yep.
Mac and Dennis
Yep.
both do blackface.
Yep.
But obviously, that's done in a
and Frank says the
satirical
N word.
yes, yeah.
Like,
I was
Again,
thinking whether that's as bad or because
a
it's been put into
self-awareness.
such a
yeah.
that's shocking because it's blackface.
Well,
then
like
that's
Trott says,
okay.
it's the self-awareness that what they're doing is outrageous, but they're also recognizing that it is
Yeah.
outrageous, right?
Yeah,
But I worry
it's-
that
it's
they'll
the
end-
character that's doing it, and the show is making a mockery of that character.
But ultimately,
doing-
they wrote it, so ultimately, like,
yeah.
can that be construed later down the line where this cancel culture grows even more and more, and they go,
They
"Holy
were
fucking
aware of
shit!
what-
Don't watch their
But
show.
it's-
They did
it's
blackface
satire,
once."
though.
And it's
in,
like,
in the same way that
I
Mel
know,
Brooks
but they wrote
is,
it, right?
When Mel Brooks wrote The Producers and
Right,
did
yeah.
a Hitler musical,
yeah.
but like no one's gonna have a problem with that because it's
Yeah.
so clearly parodying, and then
I just wonder how far it'll go. Is all I'm saying. It's just
Yeah.
how far will the media that we consume be criticized and judged in such a way as well?
And that's where the context is important. If
Yes.
context is stripped
Yeah.
out of it, then
This
that's
this
when
is
you
the
get
thing.
problems.
Like, not trying to defend Justin Trudeau in any
Sure.
way, but
Yeah.
let's for a moment imagine that at the time he knew it was outrageous, and the
Yes.
reason he wanted to do it is because he had a close group of friends who knew that
Like, "I can't believe you
racism
came
is
as
not
that."
okay,
Yeah.
and they genuinely weren't discriminative people, and they went, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Holy shit, you've gone blackface. You.
So I
that
bet
is-
fucking like Harry probably got the same. But I can't believe you came as a Nazi.
Yeah.
he's like, I bloody did it, guys. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, I can't believe you did it. There's a guy over there taking pictures.
Yeah.
Like, oh fuck, no.
But
no
at
pictures.
the same time, like, if
Yeah.
one of your friends was the Prince of England,
Yeah.
and he turned up in a Nazi
you would be
uniform,
like, well, I
you'd
can't
be
believe you
like,
fucking went that far.
This
yeah,
is
that's
fucking
shock.
nuts, and I'd
Yeah.
probably laugh because I
You
just
would
be
laugh.
like,
Well, you would laugh
That'd be
anyway. Just
outrageous.
that's outrageous.
that
It's
doesn't
like,
mean that I
fuck.
don't then feel for the 6 million
Yeah,
people that
yeah.
lost their lives just from persecution,
Yeah.
let alone all the people that died fighting in those wars.
Is it a
But then
case
that's where the
of
context is key. 'Cause he's a
intended,
prince.
also
Yeah.
intended audience is
Yeah,
important.
absolutely. Yeah, an intended audience. It's like the jokes you make among your friends are probably based on context, based on understanding of a relationship, based on the understanding that you both know that racism is not okay. Like actual racism is not okay. Like
It is.
But the private behind doors thing, is that like, because there was this thing not too long ago, where was it a bunch of guys from a uni who were like saying very rapey things in a group chat?
Oh, this was an Exeter.
which technically was this next of it.
Yeah,
You went to Exeter, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where obviously that went public.
This guy.
Which was it considered a private set of conversations, I guess? But
Yeah.
you know, that's not.
But I feel like if it
acceptable.
was the ones I'm thinking of, then the content was like very
Extremely.
much like, it was never going to be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think context can only take you so far as well.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It obviously everything is case specific. Like,
Yeah.
is what we were doing is what we were talking about earlier when we were just like generalizing and making it like,
Yeah.
stripped down to the barest essentials. It's always going to be context specific, but certainly in that case, like, even the context. Is
Well, that's
not
the thing. I mean, I guess
okay.
In that scenario, these girls that they were talking about were in the chat as well. So I guess they have every right to publicize it if it was.
And also,
extremely
it was
offensive.
a student society chat, if I remember rightly. It was like
Oh,
a
so
law
it's a bit
society.
Oh really? Oh God!
Right.
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ!
So no, that was a really bad period for Exeter.
It's hard to draw the line, isn't it? Like, it really is in terms of
How to jokes like, in general.
I'm desperately not trying not to say this one thing is okay and this one thing isn't, because I don't. It's not that simple. But
it's an ever-shifting scale as well.
And for an individual, like we see this and it goes up on the internet, and then there are all these millions of different viewpoints coming in on that, right? And you build a melting pot of opinion from that.
Yeah.
But as an individual, it's a genuine anxiety to like try and work that out for yourself. You're like, what do I do? Is what I'm saying okay? Like,
And also,
what's the thing? Yeah,
like going back to us growing as people, our viewpoints, say from 10 years ago, about this very same topic is different from now.
For sure.
Yeah.
So like everyone's viewpoints changing, society's viewpoints changing and shifting, but these things are being archived.
Yeah.
So
That's it.
everything's
Exactly.
being kept in its preserved state online. This video could be looked back on in say 20 years time, where
When you're going for prime minister,
Yeah.
The kids are screwed.
you're
Yeah.
shafted.
yeah, exactly.
Remember this time you made this weird
Exactly.
TikTok and you were racist in it?
But it gets
Well,
brought
it's
out of
haunting you today.
context, brought out of context, brought out the time it was in, and picked apart
Yeah.
with a different viewpoint. So yeah, it's
I mean, at the end of the day, people
dangerous.
shouldn't be saying things if they're worried about the repercussions.
Yeah, if you want to be a politician.
In particular,
Yeah.
But like it's like a position of power to be thinking like, oh, should I say this? Should I not? It should always be like, what determines if something is okay or offensive or not is the perspective of the people that joke is being made at the expense of. Like that is the true determiner. And I feel like basically in all cases, if you're not sure, just keep your mouth shut. Like don't do something if you think there's a possibility. But then obviously then it's like, well,
Yeah. Do you think there's anything?
anybody?
Yeah. Do you
That's
think there's
the,
anything you can't
yeah.
joke about? If it was a joke, obviously in this scenario, like for his particular scenario,
I think
we have no context to why he dressed up like he did. But like in terms of joking and obviously this
Again,
cancel
I
culture
think-
stuff, do you think there's a line
Yeah.
there?
So again, it's exactly down to who's saying it, how it's said, and
Yeah.
who the intended audience is for.
Yeah.
Because like if it's a comedian on a stand-up show making a joke, you understand the premise of what that person's
They're
trying
in
to
that
do.
realm.
If it's the prime minister cracking a joke in a private party, he's got a different agenda and a different,
But it's also a question of identity. If we were to make as a bunch of 4 white guys a joke at the expense of, I don't know, say black women, very different from if a black woman made that joke.
Of course, yeah.
Like it's about the expectation of you as a person, but then also your identity and what the content of the joke is.
Exactly. Like there are plenty of Hispanic people in the States who are very pro the wall, very pro stopping more Hispanics coming over. And that is just a reality. That Donald Trump has a Hispanic base, not entirely, but there are some people in the Hispanic community
Again,
who
like,
will support his
they're
things.
probably quite conservative in the sense that we're okay where we are now. We don't want any more.
Well, they identify as an American
Yeah.
and not as a Mexican. And this is the thing, and it's like I would have no problem. Person with African origins going on up on a stage, like you say, doing a comedy act, talking about how white Europeans are slavers and all that sort of stuff, because like we were.
Yeah.
But then equally, if I went up and started talking about how all black people used to be slaves, it's a kind of a much more difficult thing to
power
navigate.
dynamic.
It is though because of the specific context of what you're saying. Like in both situations, we were on top, and therefore being the minority and being enslaved is far worse than being.
It's determined by the people who were powerless.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. But
And for us to make a joke about that is us just.
But that
doubling
argument
down.
says that so the inverse of what that means, like you're saying, I agree to an extent what you're saying. However, that means that the only reason that black person can make that joke is because their ancestors were enslaved. That person might be 6th generation British, you know, like it.
However,
but because the color of their skin is black, they have more credence to what they're saying.
But they're also still discriminated.
I've never discriminated against black people. Why should I not be able to make that joke?
Again, it's intended audience. So
it's also, I mean, in that specific example, it's how they choose to self-identify. You know.
But then why shouldn't I be able to say whatever I want, regardless of another person self-identifying as something else? You know, this is like a sort of libertarian like state of mind. Like, I don't want to do that because you're perfectly right. It's a lot easier just to stay quiet.
It's like how much do you want to do it, and what's the reason for doing it?
But why should a person be stopped from doing things like that? Like, this is very much a thought experiment. I really don't feel the need to go up on stage and say, wait, black people should stop making jokes about white people. Do whatever the fuck you want. I don't care. Like, equally, I think I would find plenty of black people that just be like, wow, that guy wants to be a raving racist. Fuck him. Like, I don't care. Like, you know, I think there's a very dangerous dynamic in that we can make people victims who necessarily don't want to be victims. You know, like people who are.
Is it more offensive to paint someone as a victim based on
they don't identify as a
a historical past that may not have a direct influence on their
the inverse,
life today?
Though, of riling up a crowd? For example, I keep bringing him up, but PewDiePie, for example, being an advocate for the Nazi, like, white supremacist people.
That's not his choice.
Not his choice, but
he is being used as an
put on a pedestal as a bastion for these. Just because he's making jokes of things, his intention's the same as yours. Like, he said stupid things and whatever. Yeah, he's made mistakes.
Well, it was
he's made jokes, but he's got the same frame of mind as Smith, where it's like, why can't I say these things? But there's a dangerous side effect where that you do get the extreme sides.
Yeah.
That
Judge the extreme side, not the person they're holding up, I guess, is what I would say to that.
But yeah, like, is PewDiePie having an adverse effect on them
or empowering them?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's not necessarily his
not
fault.
his fault.
But does it matter if it's his intention?
But if the result is
still
still
bad,
just the act of doing something.
From a realist perspective, it's not a matter of, you know, it doesn't matter why what the intention was of him doing something like that. It's the effects that really count.
Yeah. It doesn't
take
matter
the
how he
Fiverr
got
thing.
to that point. If it's still bad, it's bad.
But the only thing you can control is yourself, right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing you really have any kind of control over. So yeah,
but
if the
you
effect
can
is
affect
bad,
others, though.
You can, yes, I fully accept that. However, you cannot be responsible for the intentions or the way other. It's impossible.
I guess
it's impossible to
Yeah.
control.
But you
What
can-
I guess it
make
gets
of
to a
you.
point of like,
But you can't
how
control
do you
yourself.
want to offend people,
Yeah.
and whether you're happy to just say I offended them,
Yeah,
I'll move
well-
on. Like
Some people do that.
Yeah, like the PewDiePie Fiverr thing where he, you know, paid them to put the Jew comment on. Like, it was dumb and stupid, and he knew it was. That's the whole point of the joke, because he didn't
think of
expect
the-
that they would actually do something
Yeah.
so ridiculous, and that was the punchline, right?
Ultimately, you know, him being as open-minded liberal as he was, it had serious damaging consequences to him.
Yeah.
But is the effect his fault?
No, but do you want that
So-
effect?
Well, yeah. Well,
It's on him to own it.
ideally not. But do you honestly think that he could see the potential effects he was having? This is what I'm saying.
But
Like,
should he have at least
no,
considered it?
he's only human. Like, it's
With
impossible to consider the effects of something you do with every particular individual in this world. There are billions of
No, but
people.
you
I feel like
You can
if you're
judge.
asking people to do it on Fiverr, then
Yeah.
there's a
With-
possibility that they will do it.
You can at least think of, like, yeah, it could potentially be bad if I do this.
Yeah.
I think you should do your best to try and work out the effects, but
Yeah.
equally you
With
should
his
be
audience, he-
crucified for those effects if they go wrong.
Yeah. Well, he must have known that he would have a huge reach on these videos anyway, and so he's putting that out to millions of people, and you've got to be prepared for
Yeah.
the backlash.
Yeah, you do have a responsibility.
But if he thought it was funny at the time, yeah, you've got to own it at the time and just be like, well, I thought it was a joke.
A lot of it was
wasn't meant as a serious
apologies
threat against
and-
Jewish people.
Because he had articles, BBC and Wall Street Journal and everyone, like, condoning
Yeah.
him, etc.
Well, that's it. Yeah, it
And
magnified.
he came back with an apology.
I've been looking at something for the last 20 minutes, and there's a headline on the TV saying,
yeah.
India plans to create a breed of super intelligent kids using cow urine.
Okay, do you want me to
And
just
I will-
click that open?
I can't rest.
I didn't
until
find
know
this.
what
Is
it
that
is.
your
That was
story?
me.
Did you find
Yeah,
that story?
I
Yeah, I
did
didn't
this,
see
yeah.
that.
Sorry,
one.
we have a screen in front of us.
Yeah.
People who are listening to the podcast.
Classic Indians, am I right?
But that sounds. But I'd like to see what.
Just own it. Own it.
Oh man, what is this even about?
Okay, so it's an ingenious solution that nobody asked for to an issue no one thought about. So I can't remember this specifically because it was
Okay.
a couple of weeks ago, but it's a very spurious, like, scientific brief. I don't
It's
know.
not. It's barely even a study.
That was
It's
put
just
forward to government that was obviously cancelled. But they said a drug using cow urine and feces
oh my
would
god.
aid in the intelligence of children. Like
Yeah.
giving
Was this like preconception?
So the government body for
Pronounced perfectly. Yeah, great.
National Commission for Cows. Obviously, cows are
Yeah,
a sacred
so
animal
the
in
pregnant-
Indian.
the pregnant
Pregnant,
mother
pregnant.
would be taking these drugs, and
Yeah,
it would
right.
influence the effects.
But they're not drugs really, because there's
It's-
something called pachakaiva, which is a mixture used in Hindu rituals.
Yes.
So this is
It's like it's like your doctorate.
yeah,
In-
it is.
in
It-
Chinese
You should be a
it's not.
specialist in this.
It's not. When they say drug, I think you naturally associate the idea with some form of
Chemicals
chemistry.
or like, yeah.
But a drug is just like a compound mix of
yeah, it's
stuff that you
chemicals,
ingest.
But then in this case, it's just mixing cow urine and feces in a ritualistic manner. Smart Indian women may be able to produce smart, highly intelligent, and healthy children if they took this bovine-based drug regularly. I don't know what this is based on.
How have they?
Well, the thing, like at the moment in India, and you see it in physics a fair bit, there is like this kind of rejection of modern science. I'm generalizing here, but you will see these reports of people rejecting modern science and going back to really old, like Vedic texts or Vedic. I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce it. Like really thousands of year old Hindu science. People claiming that they're not Einstein gravitational waves. They should be called, Indian waves because they were theorized long ago.
Right.
I see.
Okay.
And you do. It seems to be coming up with like a fair frequency that like stuff like this happening, where it's pseudoscience. It's based on not a modern conception of how we acquire
trying
I guess you can kind of
random
see
things
where
to see what works.
that mindset comes from, though. It's like from I don't want to be told everything anymore.
I think it's definitely tied in with the nationalist kind of rise of the nationalist movement in India.
Can you
It's
scroll
like
down
Indian
again?
identity.
and also the fear of being indoctrinated into like the government and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And also
But
that there's
everything,
this
the
chow down
rituals
on
worked
cow
back
shit.
in those days, so why? And we've lived this long, why not
Yeah.
utilize?
It's
that?
also quite possibly a kind of reactionary, it's a reaction to colonialism.
Yeah,
The
could well
fact that
be.
you might view Western science as being
Either that or it's like
non-Indian. We're now going to return to Indian things. It's
I mean,
colonial.
This article, is there scientific basis behind the idea of using cow piss and poop to make a drug that will result in pregnant
Sounds
women
loaded.
birth to smart kids who will make Mozart seem stupid? No, not really. Is this whole plan less because of medicinal qualities of bovine urine and feces, and more because of the abundance of the stuff in India, and someone's come up with a way to monetize it? Almost certainly. But hey, Steve Rogers was given superhuman abilities thanks to some blue stuff.
Oh yeah,
Is it
your
just not
mic's gone.
working?
Yeah, your mic's gone.
Well, basically, it's all bullshit. Is it working now?
Quite
Yeah,
literally
it's
bullshit.
My mic cut out. It's
How long has it been like that
literally
for?
bullshit.
Oh god.
Well, that's this angle of this article. To be fair, they're not sourcing anything. They're just saying.
This is reminding me very much of like a sort of a Daily Mail article.
Yeah.
This is on goat.com.au.
Goat.com.
They're
I
saying
mean,
they're making their own assumptions here.
imagine giving a pregnant
Yeah.
woman cow shit and urine. I feel
mean,
like they're just trying
But
to.
it-
They're in genocide at this
It's
stage.
hard to argue against it.
Yeah, I'm trying to be object. Like, how would I write an article about this objectively?
There you go.
Like, it's kind of impossible to not put a
Start
certain amount of
human
spin on this.
trials.
Oh, my, yeah, let's,
Straight away, let's start
The only
doing
way.
it.
but then they'll increase the cow situation, surely.
Oh no! Now we're back to the cows.
Then we're back to the cow thing. Well, super intelligent kids, guys. Although if you eat the shit quick enough, it doesn't have. Maybe it doesn't.
Imagine if it does work though. 20 years down the line, where they watch this back and they're like, "Well, these idiots."
You bellends.
These guys are
They
really
tried to
smart.
stop
How did
the
you get so
golden
smart? My
generation.
mum ate loads of shit when she was a kid.
And they had
when she was
paracetamol
pregnant.
back in those days. How primitive.
I will stress that we do believe as a podcast that there are many, many, many intelligent scientific people
Oh, of
in
course.
India.
Of course.
Sure.
But
Oh,
it's,
God,
stuff,
yeah.
it's stuff like this that just makes you want to get rid of
Yeah.
like all of this sort
But
of
this is just like a hype.
old shit. Not India, as in all of this
What
like
are you gonna say?
Get
It's
rid of
like-
all the
Just really
terrible
elongate-
articles written about.
anything with sort of religious or spiritualistic connection. I just think is just more often than not a
Yeah, but it's
bloody
worked up
nightmare.
till now, Smith. So maybe
It
that's
hasn't
It has.
worked up
Well,
till now.
well-
People died. A lot of people died.
Yeah, the past was
But
awful.
without
If
religion,
anyone
more
gives you an
would have died.
opportunity to live at any point in the past, go like a second ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like-
Or maybe like I think like 1950s America, like when they had their like
Back
one
when
of the
racism
most.
was in favour.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the downside, obviously. But like the 50s and 60s, like in America, was like an economic golden age for them, right?
For
And,
them,
like,
yeah.
but
also only for a certain type of American.
yeah.
And it's very much. It's almost like a history was written by the victors.
Oh,
kind
absolutely.
of mentality.
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
live in the American century right now.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
And obviously,
you know.
Hollywood has had a huge impact.
Exactly, you
on
wouldn't-
how
yeah, it's
we-
been
how we
fetishized. It's
It's
perceive
made it into
yeah.
a thing, right? Yeah. So
Like
and,
Mad
and
Men
yet also
style.
like think about how much medicine has advanced since the 50s.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
you know,
Penicillin.
the fact that your life expectancy is so much. Well, actually, no, I don't know how the life expectancy has changed, but if something were to go wrong with you, your expectation of receiving good care is so much better now.
Here, have a 20-pack of cigarettes and.
The UK is quite low on the chart of good healthcare.
Oh, really?
At the moment, yeah.
Is it?
Good. Yeah, it's not.
It's probably because the Conservatives have been strangling the NHS for the last 10 years.
Deliberately strangling it so that privatisation seems like a good idea.
Right, yeah, of
It's
course.
the most dirty thing.
Anyway, before we get too political, this is the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
So we've done it.
We've done it.
we made
Did
it.
the podcast.
We made it to the end.
First podcast with a guest as well. So
Yeah.
Simon.
Thank you very much
Thanks,
for
Simon.
having me.
Yeah.
It was
There's
a lot of fun.
obviously
I think
so
we learned
much
something.
more we could pick your brains. I hate that.
We didn't
saying.
even
Pick
talk
your
about
brains,
Warhammer.
yeah.
I mean,
Didn't
that's
even
talk about
most
Warhammer.
of my knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
maybe
man.
next time.
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah.
your favourite nation and empire?
Well, I do 40k rather than fantasy. I always had a soft spot for the Empire in general, but
Right.
Middenland.
Why don't the
specifically.
lizard men have a 40k army?
Yeah, that's what
I
I
know,
wanna
right?
Space lizards.
Imagine like a Vietnam era lizard men. So they have like drop ships that have like M60 guns on the outside.
Yeah.
And all the crocker men are like, in there like leather.
Crococopters.
Yeah,
Crococopters.
exactly.
Well, I
Of
suppose
course,
the
bring those
Tyranids are a
back.
little bit like that, and they've got like super heavy infantry. And
I
But they're
can-
so weird.
Yeah, but like
I love Nids.
lizard men are like the Mayans. Of
Yeah, exactly.
Warhammer.
They're
so
smart,
I think
right?
they'd be like the super high intelligence.
Yeah.
Well, there was the Krork. There was like a previous galaxy-wide empire that was like hasn't been represented in the present because it's like extinct. Or there's the Rangaran. There was the Rangarang Xenocides in the Great Crusade. It might have been them. There's the thing about when you have like a galaxy is it's so big you could just insert them anywhere.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, we
It
only just
should
found
be.
this lizard empire.
Call out to Warhammer.
Super smart giant toads.
Make it happen.
Yeah. Oh, it's the Tau.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's a weird mix of the Tau and the Tyranids.
Yeah.
Two polar opposite ends of the spectrum.
Nice. All right, well, we solved that problem.
There we go. That's,
Yeah,
that's some
thanks,
Warhammer
guys.
talk.
Talk
We've
some
got my
Warhammer.
contract in.
Excellent. Well, please check out Simon on his YouTube channel,
Which is?
It's just Simon Clark on YouTube.
Simon
There you
Clark
go.
on YouTube. Is
Simon
that one E
Clark on
or
YouTube.
No E,
No
thank you
E.
very much.
There we go.
No E. Strictly no E.
And a
And-
huge thanks to our Patreon.
Absolutely. Thank you for
guys,
supporting
thank
this
you very much.
podcast. You will be listed in the credits at the end in a randomized order. But if you want to support us, it's patreon.com/hatfilms.
There we go.
That's
Lovely.
what makes this thing keep going because we don't fund it otherwise.
Yep.
And yeah,
If you want to send in your fingals and questions to
like
hatchat
order.
at hat-films.com.
Thank you, Morda. You got a great fingal going on, and the long version will be at the end.
Yeah. So send those
Lovely.
in for the
Please
next one.
do. And thank you once again to Simon
Yes.
for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I had a great time.
Get a single clap.
Oh, thank
Oh,
you,
I can't
guys.
give you another one. That's the thing. He's done the one clap. So we'll see you in the next one.
Yes.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.